everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Eric Obin from My Tech University. If today is your first time on this channel, kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the notification bell to be notified anytime we drop new video. We are continuing our series on user account management as a system administrator or system engineer. This is very important because as part of your role as a system administrator or engineer, you'll be tasked with creating users in the system. Giving them password, deleting them. In fact, anything that has to do with managing user accounts lies on you. Therefore, if you watch our previous videos, we looked at how to create a new user. So you can probably get those videos and look at it. We also look at how to create a user with a custom home directory. Today, we want to look at how to create a user with a specified user ID. So now we are about to create a new user with a specified or specific user ID using the user add command. Now, the reason why we want to use the user add command is that in our previous videos, we said it gives you the opportunity to manually give some specifics in the account that you are creating, unlike the add user. So that's the difference. So looking at what you see on my screen, the command to create a new user with a specified user ID is user add -u. The -u is a lowercase u. Then the ID you are specifying, then the new user that you are creating. Don't forget, we use the user when we are creating a user that is not in existence, meaning we are creating a new user, a fresh user. We are adding a new user in the database. That is when we use the user add. All right, so now let's get into it and look at how this is done. So let me go ahead and clear my screen and get into action. So the first thing we need to do is to first find out if the user ID that we are about to create is already being used by somebody else. It's very, very important because there are so many user IDs in the system. So first of all, you need to verify that the one that you are about to use already exists or not. Okay. So first, what we want to do is we need to get the command first. So the command, as we said, will be user add. Then what you do is that you bring the flag, and the flag we're going to use is that's u, and that is the lowercase. Then what you do is you go ahead and give the user ID, but just some tutorial on the user ID that we have in the system. So the user ID, when you create any accounts, there is an ID that is assigned to that account. You know, we have service account, we have regular user account, then also the root user. So by default, the number 0 is always reserved for the roots. The root is always assigned 0. Therefore, you don't choose that, you know. Then we also have the numbers from 1 through to 999. Number 1 through to 999 is also reserved for system users or system services. Therefore, starting from the number 1000 to 60,000 is reserved for regular users. So which implies that if I want to assign a specific user ID to a new user, then it has to be within that range. So if it doesn't fall within that range, then which means it wouldn't work. And that is what I have to let us know. So what we have to do is that we have to find out. So how do we find out if this user is being used or not? The user ID. So let's go ahead and just run the command to see. So assuming I just want to create something. Let me use 1000. So the user ID I'm using now is 1000. Then now let me use the name. Let's give it the name, let's say a book. All right, and let's see what happens if it's going to be rejected. Now, look at what it says. It says user ID 1000 is not unique, which implies that this ID is somehow being used in the system. So that's the first error you encounter. So anytime you do that and it says it's not unique, the implication is that the user ID is being used in the system. So let's go ahead and find out who is using that user ID. Let's run this command. So I just have to run gettent, then password, that's pass WD. Then let me put in the ID. The ID is 1000. You see? So the ID 1000 tells us that there is a user named Sawa or SDD. See it over there, SDD, that has that user ID. So which means that the number 1000 is assigned to SDD. SDD has this user ID. Therefore, I can't use this user ID. So let's try and use something else. Okay, so now let me go back and check. Or better still, instead of going back and forth, now let me run this command, and this command will give us an idea of the user IDs that are being used in the system. So it's going to be cats, then I use -d, then I blink my semicolon, then I have -f3, then 8C. Remember we said 8C is where we have the user information stored in the system. So I bring my 8C, then of course my pass WD. So let's see what comes up. So this gives us all the user ID in the system that are being used. So to have an idea of the user ID that is not used, you can just run through this. Then you can choose those that are not in use. So from 0, remember we said 0 is reserved for the root. So of course you cannot use that. So we have 0, 1, 2, it goes in that order. So this tells us that service ID, other user accounts are being used in the system. So we have 1000 is over there, 101, 102, it runs through, you see in that order, up to 1090. So let's try and use something that is outside the numbers that is already used in the system. So probably let's try 1050. Let's try that and see. So I beg your pardon. So let me try user add, then bring -u, then bring the ID. Let's see, let's try this if it's gonna work. Then probably let's see above and see what happened. Great, it works. You see that? Why? Because the user ID that we chose now is not part of the users that are already in use in the system. So again, the command to use to find out if the user you are trying, so the user ID you are trying to use is already being used in the system, you run the command. Let me just record the command. So that's the command. So it's cat-d, you bring your semicolon, then space -f3, then hc pass wd. It will list all the IDs that are being used in the system by regular users and even service account IDs. It's going to list all. So you realize that after that had been listed, we just glanced through and we had an idea of user ID that are not used, and therefore we chose just one of them. Does it make sense? Okay, right. So now let's go back and now verify if that account has been created. So in our previous videos, we said if you want to verify if an account has been created, you can either cut, then you go to HC, you go to pass WD, then you grab, you pipe first, you grab, then you bring the username above. So there we go. Yes. So it shows that this is the specific user ID that we assign to the user above. So realize that this one by default, it did not assign the user ID. We assign that user ID to the user above. Remember, we had said previously that by default, when you use the user add, if you don't specify, the system or the command user add automatically create the user ID by default for the user. But in this tutorial, what we are doing is that we are assigning a new or specific user ID to the user that we are creating. Now, let's do it again. Okay, now let me clear my screen, Control L, clear everything, and now let me choose another user. But of course, it has to be outside the range that we listed. So again, the command is user add. User add is used to create a new user that is not in existence in the system. Now, the flag or the option we use is that's you, lower is you. Now, let's give the number. So hopefully it is outside the range. So 10, let me use 70 and see. So that's 1070. Now, let me give the name. Let's see Navi. Let me try Navi if I don't have that in the system. Yes, it worked. Why did it work? It worked because the user ID 1070 or 1070 is not being used. Therefore, we can assign that to the new user we are creating. So again, how do we verify? To verify, you cut into it, pass WD, and you have to be careful when you're spelling it out because it's case sensitive. You pipe it, you grab it, then you bring the user that you've created. Yes, it worked. So realize that we've assigned 70, that's 1070, 1070 to the new user Navi we created. I hope you've learned something out of this tutorial. Perfect. Okay. What again? How do we check again? Remember we said we can do ID, then Navi. Great. So we did ID, Navi, and it shows that the user ID we assign is 1070. That's 1070. So if you look at it, let me highlight it nicely for you to see. Right there, voila. And that is user ID 1070 has been assigned to Navi. I hope this tutorial really helped you. Now, let's look at something. What about now we've assigned a user ID? Then we also want to, include a home directory to the user. So now we're about to do another, tutorial on top of it, So let me show that on my screen, what we're about to do to kind of give you an idea. So this time what we're about to do is that we are about to assign a new user ID to the user we're about to create, and also assign a custom home directory. Again, by default, when I use the user add to create an account, what it does is that it by default assigns a user ID to the new user. It also assigns a group ID to the new user, and also assigns a default home directory to the new user. But what we want to do now is that we want to assign our own user ID and also assign our own home directory to the user. You see, that's what we want to do now in this part of the tutorial. So let's jump straight on it. So what is going to be the command? So the command here is going to be, of course, you see the sudo over there, because the best practice, you're not supposed to get into, use the root. That's not the best practice. The best practice is always, work as a regular user, but use a privilege, the sudo privilege or the administrative privilege when you are creating an account. So the best practice, again, it is a disclaimer, is to always work as a regular user with an administrative privilege. But the reason why I'm using the root is I don't want to go back and forth putting in my password. It's going to take time, because we have so much to do. But always make sure you do that being a regular user. Okay, so the command is going to be user add, or if you're working as a regular user, of course, sudo user add, then you bring the option or the flag, that is then the number, the user ID, then we have -m, -d, then the path of the home directory you want to create for the user you are creating. So in this tutorial, realize that we are assigning a new user by name Jehoram. So which implies that Jehoram shouldn't be among the users created already. It should be a new user we are adding into the system. So Jehoram is the name of the user. Now the command here I want you to pay attention to is the -m, the -t, because you already know the -u, that we already did. Okay. Now, in our previous video, we looked at the use of the -m and the -d. And we said a -m helps you to create, add a new home directory to the user that you are creating, plus the -d. So the -m and the -d help us to create a user if the home directory does not even exist. So if it doesn't exist, the home directory doesn't exist, the best practice is to first create the home directory before you add the new user to it. So you can jump on my previous video and look at that. That will be a long process and that will prolong the video. So I don't want to go into that. But this is going to be the command. Jump on the previous video to get a better understanding of what I am talking about. All right, so let's get straight into action. Okay, so the home directory here is custom/road. That is the home directory, custom-road. So to be on the safe side, let's go ahead and find out if this is already in the system. So how do we find out if a directory already exists in the system? So you bring the command ls-ld, then you bring the directory. So say directory is custom/road. Now the ls means to list, then the ld is directory. So what we are saying with the use of this command is list all the directories in the system. And what is that directory we are looking at? It is /custom/road. That is the directory we are looking at in the system. So let's find out if it exists. Okay, so you can see. So you can see that the path custom/road exists in the system. So you can see that it exists in the system. So once it exists in the system, we are good to go and now use it because it already exists in the system. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that. All right, so once it exists in the system, what did we say the command should be? So let me bring that up. So there you go. So it's going to be user add. Now you bring the -u flag. Then what you do is the ID that you are assigning that new user with, then you follow the rest with a path. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So I have my user add, then I bring my flag, then probably let me use 10050. I'm pretty sure maybe I haven't used that before. Okay, then I have my -m, my -d, then the path. The path is custom road. Now the name of the user to identify that this home directory or this directory is assigned to the user, and that's Jehoram. Then the name of the user. Okay, so now let's look at it very well. Again, user add. Now the flag is -u. Now the ID, which is 1050 -m -d, then custom road Jehoram, right? So that will tell you then, of course, the name of the new user we are creating. So let's go ahead now. Again, we've encountered the same problem. Why is it saying that? Because the user ID 1050 is already used in the system. But we can use that, you see. So if we can use that, then let's go back and recall it and change that. Hopefully that should work. So let's look for something that is outside. Let me probably use 80. Let me try this. Okay, it works. So which means 1080, is not used in the system, and therefore it accepted that ID. So it is always advisable, as I said, to check, run this command to find out the IDs that are already used in the system. So that is CUT-D, then we have the semicolon, -F3, then HC pass WD. This is going to be the command to run to check the IDs that are already used in the system or not. Okay, perfect. Now, let's go back and verify if the user Jehoram is already in the system. Okay, so let's do that. So how do we do that? Now, again, we cut it. HC pass WD. We pipe it, we grab it, then the name, Jehoram. There we go. You see it right there? Perfect. So beautiful, as you can see. So easy. So it's going to be Jehoram. So we've created the user name Jehoram. It tells you the user ID that we use. So 1080. It gives by default, it picks it up as the group ID as well, because we haven't assigned, we haven't specified the user ID that we want to use. So of course, by default, once we assign 1080 as the user ID, the group ID also picks that as such, so beautiful. So once that does that, now we went ahead and we assigned a home directory to the user Jehoram, and that is the custom road. And we said in our previous video that the home directory of the user is where the profile information, the configurations, settings about the user is found. So you can see over there, and of course, the default shell is a bean bash. I hope this tutorial really helped you. So you can watch over, practice it yourself, be used with the commands that I use in creating this. And I believe this will help you very, 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 very much in your journey as a system administrator or system engineer. So just recapping, we used, first of all, let me go back and recap that for us to see. This was the first one we did was we created a new user with a specific user ID. And the command that we used is the sudo, that is using as a regular user. That is the best practice. Remember I said that. Okay. So sudo user add -u is the flag. Then the ID that you are specifying, that is the number. And I've already given you the range. I said 0 is assigned to the root user, so you cannot use it. Then from 1 through to 999 is assigned as the system accounts, system account, service account. Nobody can use that. It wouldn't work. Then from 1,000 to 60,000, within any of the range, you can use it as a regular user. So don't forget this. Then also we went ahead and said, if you want to find out the users IDs that is already used in the system, the command to use is cut-d semicolon space -F3 space /HC/PASSWD, that's pass WD. It will help you to know the IDs that are already used in the system. So that is it for this very one. Now, we also looked at the B part, and that is now you are assigning a new user ID as well as assigning a new home directory to the user, which means you are customizing the home directory to the new user. So the command again is user add. So sudo regular user, don't forget. Then you bring your -u, that is the option or the flag. Then you assign the number that you want to use. Then we have the -m, the -d, then the path. So you always bring the path. Then what do you do? The name of the user. You attach that, to it. So the -m is used to create the new directory. Then -d is assigning the new user to the home directory. So those are the meaning of those two. So I said you can get all that information in our previous video. All right. So until we meet again, I'm your tutor, Eric Obin, from My Tech University. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to help us grow and also be notified anytime we drop new video. Thank you for now. Until meet again.